Let's start today's discussion with a riddle. As we are all aware, the market faced significant challenges in 2020 due to the pandemic, resulting in widespread job losses and financial setbacks for many individuals. So, can you guess whether the wealth of America's top billionaires has increased or decreased during these years? Most people might not guess this, but according to Forbes data, the wealth of American billionaires has increased by 62% from March 2020 until now. For example, Elon Musk's net worth has increased by $266 billion, a staggering 1,080% surge. In sharp contrast, the hourly wage of American workers has only risen by 10%. This phenomenon highlights a harsh truth in today's society. The rich are getting richer, and the poor are getting poorer. Hello, today we're discussing the Matthew effect. The Matthew effect has been observed throughout history. More than 2,000 years ago, the ancient sage Lao Tzu wrote in the Tao Te Ching, "The way of heaven is to diminish the full and to supply the empty." The way of man is different. He takes away from the empty and gives to the full. If we look around us, we may notice that in this era, wealthy people, even if they don't work every day, still collect various luxury cars in their garages and have beautiful companions by their side. They can enjoy life and do what they love, all while their wealth continues to accumulate. On the other hand, most poor people work tirelessly and diligently every day, but cannot escape the cycle of poverty. They toil for their basic needs, but struggle to accumulate wealth. They work hard every day, but end up becoming even poorer, while the wealth gap keeps widening. The rich get richer, and the poor, no matter how hard they try, continue to struggle for their basic needs. This is what we call the Matthew effect regarding wealth. So where does the term Matthew effect originate from? The Matthew effect. The strong get stronger. The Gospel of Matthew is a book in the New Testament of the Bible that contains a parable. Once upon a time, a king was about to embark on a long journey. Before he left, he entrusted 3 servants with a sum of silver each and instructed them, "Go and do business with this money until I return." When the king returned, the first servant said, "Master, the 1 silver you gave me has now grown to 10. The king rewarded him with 10 cities. The second servant reported, "Master, the 1 silver you gave me has now grown to 5. The king rewarded him with 5 cities. The third servant, however, said, "Master, I was afraid of losing the 1 silver you gave me, so I wrapped it in a handkerchief and kept it safe. Here it is, untouched." The king then ordered the third servant to give his 1 silver to the first servant, saying, "To those who have, more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who have nothing, even what they have will be taken away." This is the essence of the Matthew effect, a phenomenon where the strong become even stronger and the weak become even weaker. The Matthew effect reflects on a societal level as a top-down chain, where the privileged get it all, leading to polarization. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer. Moreover, the wealth disparity continues across generations, with rich families producing rich descendants and poor families producing poor descendants. The movie, The Tomato Fortune, tells the story of a guy who was still a failure in middle age until he unexpectedly inherited a fortune from his uncle, transforming into a billionaire. However, to claim the inheritance, his uncle set a condition. The guy must spend $1 billion within a month. So, Wang Duoyu and his group of useless friends try to squander the money. But to their surprise, the more they squandered, the more the $1 billion multiplied. In their attempts to spend the money quickly, they invested in nearly delisted stocks, which unexpectedly surged, making them another $1 billion. They also bought a bunch of unfinished buildings, hoping to waste a large sum, but they made another $10 billion because the area got rezoned for schools. This seemingly absurd comedy reveals a cruel reality that the average audience might not pay much attention to. The money in the hands of the wealthy multiplies like a virus, while the money in the hands of the poor slips away like sand, no matter how tightly they hold on to it. This reminds us of a real-life case. The British independent television, ITV, once produced a large-scale documentary called 7 Up. Starting in 1964, the cameras followed the lives of 14 7-year-old children from 5 different socio-economic backgrounds, some from wealthy families, some from middle-class households, and some from orphanages. Every 7 years, the film crew interviewed these subjects again to document their current life status, a project that spanned 63 years. Over those 63 years, which covered more than half of their lifespans, those children grew into elderly people. The harsh reality is that most of them couldn't escape the significant influence of their social class on their life trajectories and development. Children from wealthy families grew up to be wealthy individuals with respectable jobs, while children from poor families continued to struggle at the bottom, spending their entire lives trying to make ends meet. So why do the poor keep getting poorer while the rich keep getting richer? 3 reasons why the poor get poorer and the rich get richer. The gap between the poor and the rich isn't just due to different initial wealth or varying opportunities, nor is it solely because of differences in education. This divide is more like a 3-layered trap formed by material foundations, mindset, financial awareness, personal capabilities, choices, and luck, making it extremely difficult to break free from. The first layer of this trap is the scarcity mindset. The poorer a person is, the more susceptible they are to its influence. What is a scarcity mindset? It's the belief that the less you have, the more you worry about what you don't have. For example, a person with limited financial means might be overly concerned with finding the cheapest groceries. They might be willing to go the extra miles, take multiple buses, just to find the best deals on groceries. However, in the end, the value of time wasted far outweighs the money saved on groceries. Economist Melanothan once said, "Scarcity narrows people's vision, forming a tunnel view. It's like looking at the scenery through a tiny hole. You can only see a single leaf." In other words, the scarcity mindset solidifies one's thinking. It's not poverty that's frightening, but rather the fixed thinking caused by the scarcity mindset. Melanothan also mentioned that scarcity narrows people's vision, and the scarcity of money can block a poor person's cognitive ability. The scarcity mindset is the original sin of poor people's thinking. It makes them only focus on immediate gains while neglecting long-term development. Melanothan introduced the concept of bandwidth. It refers to the width and capacity of a person's mindset. If this bandwidth is constantly filled with the scarcity mindset, it will affect a person's cognitive ability and executive control, ultimately trapping them in a cycle of fixed patterns. Prolonged scarcity status will consume a poor person's bandwidth, leading to a significant decrease in judgment and cognitive abilities, leaving them with no extra bandwidth to consider investments and long-term development matters. In other words, as a person becomes poorer, their thinking becomes dulled and short-sighted. In the mindset of the poor, earning quick money through constant physical labor and trading time becomes a primary focus for survival. Then work consumes a large amount of energy and time, and after work, people just want to relax. They hardly engage in learning and rarely consider long-term matters. The world of the poor is filled with struggles for survival, with little room for poetry and distant dreams. In this cycle, the poor remain trapped in poverty. Renowned American columnist Barbara Ehrenreich, in order to complete her book Nickel and Dimed on Not Getting By in America, gave up all her previous resources and connections and entered the lower echelons of society, conducting a first-hand social experiment with only $1,000. For survival, she had to take on multiple jobs, live in remote suburbs, waste a lot of time commuting, eat the cheapest fast food, and had hardly any time for self-improvement. To cope with rising rent and living costs, she had to take on even more work. No matter how hard Barbara tried, she couldn't change her situation. The poor often lack the financial means to spare enough time for their long-term development. The scarcity mindset causes people to focus solely on solving immediate problems and overlook addressing future issues, ultimately leading to greater hardships in the future. This is the first trap that ensnares the poor. The second trap that traps the poor is their original family environment. The family one is born into marks the starting point of their life journey. The material foundation provided by the family directly contributes to the wealth gap. The Chinese documentary, Upward Bound, spans 6 years, tracing the trajectories of 3 children from different social classes. Yuan Han, a child from a wealthy family, even after dropping out of school to start a business, has the opportunity to study abroad in Germany due to her family's wealth. She lives carefree and confidently in both the streets of Germany and the alleys of Beijing, and her life is filled with sunshine. Eventually, Yuan Han returns to China to become a CEO. On the other hand, Xu Jia, a child from a humble background, started working early to support the entire family's burdens, then got married and bought a house, living a life in the working class. Meanwhile, in the Gansu mountain village, Ma Baijuan, who aspires to study, finds herself unable to keep up with the other children's learning progress in the county and gets married at the tender age of 16. In the documentary's final scene about Ma Baijuan, she stands by the wall, chatting with other pregnant women in the village who are in their 20s. A harsh reality is that employers often do not directly price a job position based on its actual value. Sometimes, it's directly related to the cost of talent development or the scarcity of skilled workers, which indirectly affects job value. The rich have backgrounds, while the poor only have their shadows. Wealthy families can invest heavily to cultivate a pianist, whereas poor families can only scrape together enough money to get their child a commercial driver's license, training them to become a driver, earning a modest salary. As a person's original family environment becomes an ever-increasing invisible threshold for their career development, children from ordinary families, whose parents lack money and social resources, struggle to enter the upward mobility path in society. On the other hand, children from wealthy families with abundant social resources can easily obtain decent job opportunities, higher incomes, and broader development prospects. This original family environment is the second trap that imprisons the poor. The third trap that traps the poor is the social barrier. There's a saying that cuts deep. Don't talk about how metal counters wood or wood counters earth. If you're poor, everything will counter you. In the bustling crowd, people seem to live under the same sky, but an invisible social stratification exists, dividing them into different circles, gradually drifting further apart. The poorer a person is, the more likely they will face obstacles everywhere, because being poor means less access to quality education and exclusion from the circles of the wealthy. In the wealthy circle, people elevate each other and praise one another, while in the poor circle, there's mutual suspicion and stepping on one another. If someone earns a monthly salary of $3,000, their friends and peers are probably earning around the same. Instead of offering guidance, they may hold each other back, leading to mediocrity. As the saying goes, it's hard to find a phoenix in a chicken coop, a swan in a flock of crows, or an eagle soaring among chickens scratching for food in a valley. The reason is the existence of social barriers. The poor cannot access the circle of the rich, thus lacking a deep understanding of the information and mindset of the wealthy circle. Overall, the reason why the poor keep getting poorer is the gap in mindset, resources, and capabilities compared to the rich. And over time, this gap only widens. Most poor people are influenced by the scarcity mindset and lack the awareness to break through these barriers. Moreover, they are at a disadvantage in terms of learning, resources, time, connections, funding, and information. The poor rely on hard work to make money, while the rich build money-making systems. This perpetuates the increasing disparity between the two, further reinforcing the Matthew effect. Since the Matthew effect exists, one may wonder if ordinary people need to work hard and how they can break free from it. How to break the Matthew effect. The Matthew effect reveals the brutal truth about wealth distribution. The poor resent this unfair distribution, while the rich hope to protect their vested interests and maintain this inequality. In fact, from an economic perspective, as an economy becomes more developed, the wealth gap often grows wider. In the Paleolithic era, human wealth was quite equal. Everyone hunted together and shared the meat. However, in highly developed market economies, some people occupy or even monopolize the means of production. Compared to super-rich individuals, the resources of the working class are limited, and the wealth gap continues to widen every day. But recognizing this is the first step towards change. Since the Matthew effect is a natural law, we can't break it. We can only adapt and utilize it. Some have suggested that all wealth in society should be redistributed equally to completely eliminate the wealth gap and achieve common prosperity. However, this idea is now seen as unrealistic. First, it goes against economic common sense. Second, even if wealth is redistributed equally, most of it will inevitably gather in the hands of a few wealthy individuals. Lao Tzu said over 2,000 years ago, "The Tao of heaven is to take from those who have too much and give to those who have too little. The Tao of man is to take from those who have too little and give to those who have too much." This shows that the Matthew effect has always been present throughout history. The wealth gap cannot be completely eradicated, but it does reflect that the upper class position of the wealthy is firmly established. Once a person becomes successful and earns their first fortune, entering the wealthy class, it becomes challenging to fall back. So how can the poor use the Matthew effect to turn their fortunes around? At least win once. Remember this phrase: magnify your strengths and strive to win at least once. The at least win once strategy has been successfully used by Masayoshi Son. He acquired a company that had consistently ranked third in its industry with very low morale. He told his subordinates, "Cheer up and strive to be number one at least once." Just achieving first place for 1 month is enough. After the team achieved first place for 1 month, something interesting happened. No one wanted to step down from that position, and they remained in first place long term. Before becoming wealthy and powerful, a person has no idea what it's like. A journalist once interviewed a billionaire and asked when he started feeling that making money was effortless. The billionaire answered, "It was after I earned my first fortune." So, that first experience is crucial. Once you win once, the second time becomes much easier. Looking at society today, the fields are becoming more specialized and subdivided. It may seem like the market is reshuffling, but it's actually society reshuffling people. In the future, with the improvement of production efficiency, products will only become cheaper, but capable people will become increasingly valuable. This is the trend. After winning once, the next step is to accumulate strength and plan for long-term development. Overcome the scarcity mindset and plan for the future. The root of the scarcity mindset trap lies in the incorrect use of resources, leading to a vicious cycle. Therefore, to fundamentally solve the problem of poverty, one needs to reallocate their mental bandwidth resources and prioritize important matters that need attention. For instance, in time management, focus on resolving important matters. What are these important matters? They are things related to long-term planning for the future. This requires people to make long-term career and workplace plans early on and set clear goals. Harvard University conducted a follow-up survey on a group of young people from similar backgrounds and intelligence. Among them, 27% had no ideals and no life goals. 60% had vague ideals and life goals. 10% had ideals and made short-term plans, and only 3% had clear long-term plans. A survey found that after 25 years, the 3% of people who had consistently planned and worked towards their life goals became almost all top successful individuals in society. The 10% of people who continuously achieved short-term goals ended up in the middle class, becoming lawyers, engineers, or business executives. The 60% of people lived in the lower and middle levels of society without any outstanding achievements, hoping their children would have a better future. The remaining 27% of people became the bottom layer of society, constantly complaining about others and society. Different life plans caused each person to be separated in their life outcomes. Such scenarios are played out in life every day and will undoubtedly continue to happen in the future. If it were you, which type of person would you choose to be? The solidification of social class is rooted in the solidification of mindset. The characteristic of poor people's thinking is mainly focused on solving immediate problems, while the characteristic of rich people's thinking is oriented towards long-term goals. Don't challenge others' expertise with your hobbies. It's a humiliating and confidence-damaging action. Don't attempt to be well-rounded, because being well-rounded will only lead to overall mediocrity. Whether you are a business owner or an employee, strive to become irreplaceable in your field. Improve your core competencies, and you can become one of the few rich individuals in the Matthew effect. Finally, a few words on the Matthew effect. It's like a wall that separates the poor and the rich into two rooms. One room is large and luxuriously decorated, with delicacies like caviar made from sturgeon roe, flavored with saffron, and enjoying white diamond, white truffles on the dining table. There are few people inside, but they are all leisurely, well-dressed, and engaged in pleasant conversations. The other room is small, crowded with people working from 9 to 5 just to fill their stomachs. This room is plain and overcrowded. These are the two different worlds of the rich and the poor. As for social circles, we can't eliminate them. We can only adapt and utilize them. As for the rich, we don't need to defeat them. We only need to become one of them. Thanks for watching.